Spring in Arizona is when the heat hasn't become unbearable yet, but the palm trees are already whispering that soon it will be too late for hot coffee. It's the last weeks of the semester, the smell of freshly printed diplomas, and the hum of air conditioners chasing dreams and fatigue through the air. I studied at the University of Arizona, in Tucson. My major was data science, GPA 3.9, honors list. The department offered me to give a speech at the ceremony. I declined. I thought I just wanted my family to be there, that was all. A month before graduation, I printed formal invitations with gold embossing. I signed each by hand. I would be very happy to see you in the hall, this means a lot to me. I slipped a jasmine flower into each mom's favorite. I gave them personally, to Mom, my stepdad, and my two older sisters Tanya and Liz. Tanya laughed. "Well, you're not our first graduate." Liz added without looking up from her phone. "You're gonna get the diploma anyway, we're proud anyway. It's just, Uncle Jack booked the grill for that day." Mom said, "What matters most is that you did it all yourself. Ceremonies are always fancy. Will there even be food there?" I nodded, smiled. But inside, my chest tightened. I was used to not getting offended by my own. You can't change your own. You just accept and move on. At least, that's what I told myself. On graduation day, I woke up before my alarm. I curled my hair like before a school dance. Put on my gown burgundy, with a gold honors sash. Walking across campus in heels, I felt like a movie heroine, only there was no soundtrack. Instead, a call from Mom. "Hang in there, we're already by the pool. Uncle Jack is grilling as always, cooking and burning. Ha ha. By the way, we got wings from Costco, they're amazing." I smiled into the phone, then hit end call. I stood in line to the stage. Ahead of me were students with balloons, with posters, some with parents on FaceTime. One guy, before stepping out, turned and shouted to the crowd, "Mom, Dad, I did it!" And the crowd erupted with applause, flags waving, cheers. I just stepped onto the stage like stepping off the edge of a pool, but without water below. When the dean announced my name, Kayla Reeves, summa cum laude, the hall clapped. Formally, politely, because that's what you do. I bowed my head, took the diploma, turned to the crowd. And I saw an empty row. Where they could have been. Mine. They chose the wings. On the stairs, I opened Instagram. The first thing I saw was my sister's story. A pool, smoke from the grill, Mom with a glass of sangria, and the caption, "Family gathered." My fingers trembled. I wanted to close the app but couldn't. The next video, my stepdad dancing with the neighbor, Mom laughing. Then someone off-screen said, "Is Kayla even on stage? Well, at least she's got the diploma, right?" I watched and thought, did I really once think this was normal? Did I really think that was love? In the evening, I came home. The gown was crumpled in my hands. The diploma in a folder with the university seal. Mom greeted me with words. "At least take a photo by the pool, we'll post it, let everyone know how proud we are." I walked past silently. And for the first time, I didn't say, "Thank you," didn't take a photo, didn't tell how it went. I just went to my room. Saturday at my desk. Opened my laptop. And wrote in notes. Asterisk, today I learned 2 things. People don't change, even if you graduate with honors. My real stage is still ahead, and I won't be alone there. I'll become my own family if I have to. Asterisk! Then I closed the laptop. Laid down. And for the first time in a long while, I fell asleep without waiting for someone to call and say, "Sorry, we were wrong." Because they weren't wrong. They made their choice. And now it's my turn. To choose. I came home wearing my red gown. It was too hot to wear it outside, but taking it off would have felt like betrayal, like giving up. The burgundy fabric caught on the steps, on the bush by the gate, on the front door handle. In my head, the voice of the ceremony announcer echoed, "Kayla Reeves, summa cum laude." Those words, which were supposed to be a moment of pride, now hung in the air without support like a balloon without a string, floating, but who really cares? The kitchen smelled of meat. Wings were still sizzling on the grill. My sister Liz glanced at me briefly and shouted from the balcony, Hey, don't be mad. We're proud of you anyway. Mom, without looking up, added, Come here, the light by the pool is good. Take a photo, we'll post it. And a second later, already into the phone. Kayla, smile, don't be such a grump. I stood there under the blurry streetlight, in the gown I had worn an hour ago on stage. In my hands, the diploma folder. And for the first time, I couldn't smile. Not because I didn't want to, but because I felt that if I did, I would be betraying myself. Like by agreeing to the photo, I would be agreeing that this is all normal. That it's okay to forgive neglect just because we love you anyway. But love isn't just words. It's showing up. Listening to the speech. Being where it matters to you. I turned and walked into the house. The room was dark, but I didn't turn on the light. I sat down on the floor by the bed, hugging my knees. It was quiet. Only fragments of conversation and laughter came through the window, as if I was on a different wavelength, or even on a different shore. Close by my loved ones, but between us an ocean. I took out my notebook, an old one with a worn cover, where I used to write back in school. I opened to the last page, and I wrote, I'm not angry. I just realized I'm a stranger among my own. I speak a different language. Not louder, not smarter, just different. They want noise, I want meaning. They want photos, I want touch. They want BBQ, I want the stage where they say my name and I believe I deserve it. I put down the pen, closed my eyes, and for the first time in my life thought, what if I'm not obliged to be one of them just because it's written in the papers? My family is loud. They love noise, scandals, parties where no one listens, only interrupts. I'm different. I care about silence, depth, recognition not as a show but as proof of effort. Loud doesn't mean close. It wasn't a revelation, it was a statement. As if I finally took off my glasses and saw, all these years I tried to fit into a mold that doesn't fit me. A family puzzle where my piece was never there. And it's not my fault I don't fit. It's just time to cut out my own frame. From scratch. Alone, if I have to. That night, I fell asleep to the hum of an old fan. Without guilt. Without anger. With a new feeling. I'm grown up. I'm free. And now everything is just beginning. The internship came by chance. Or maybe I just suddenly started noticing these opportunities before. I only looked for what was convenient for the family. Something close by. Something modest. Nebula Metrics. A young startup in Seattle working on behavioral analytics based on data from smart devices. The product is rough around the edges, but the idea is fire. They needed an intern, sharp and with character. I applied without overthinking, without approval, without discussions. When the invitation came, I quietly packed my things. A suitcase, a backpack, a notebook, everything I needed. Mom found out when I placed the suitcase by the door. What's this now? Her voice wasn't worried, just annoyed. An internship. In Seattle. 3 months. Maybe longer. My sister snorted. Yeah, sure. Off to make a career to prove something to us? I stayed silent. Tired of arguing. Mom sighed. Well, when you come back, maybe you'll be wiser. How many of those gone away have come back with their tails between their legs? I wasn't angry. I was observing. People are afraid when you change, because it forces them to look at themselves. On the train, I sat by the window, for hours. The scenery changed, first desert, then hills, then the green waves of the Northwest. Inside, anxiety, doubt, a thin, sticky fear. What if they're right? What if I can't handle it? What if I come back and it's worse? But between those thoughts, something else emerged, something new. Something I had never felt at home. Freedom. Not excitement. Not euphoria. Just steady, quiet silence. Where I could breathe. I took out my notebook and wrote, I'm not running away from them, I'm walking towards myself. If I lose, it will be my loss. If I win, my choice, made with my own hands. Now my life will be mine. Seattle greeted me with rain, and for the first time in my life, I didn't care if my hair got wet. I stood on the sidewalk, suitcase beside me, silence in my headphones. I didn't know where I'd be in a week, in a month. But I knew for sure. I would not return the same. And that is already a victory. The first weeks at Nebula Metrics were tough, but not in a bad way. It was a kind of tiredness that whispered, "You're growing." I was the first to arrive, the last to leave. I stayed after hours when no one asked me to. When the server crashed at 9:43 p.m., I had it back up by 10:05. When data had to be labeled manually, I did it without complaints, just tea and focus. Colleagues called me the notebook maniac. At first jokingly, then with respect. One day, Liam, an analyst from a neighboring team, said, "Hey Kayla, do you even sleep?" I shrugged. "I sleep when I know the task is done." He laughed, not mockingly, just because he didn't know how to respond to someone who didn't have ambitions, but fire. The project lead, Miranda, didn't notice right away. She was the kind who rarely gave compliments. But after 3 weeks, she came up to me after the morning stand-up and said, "You seriously overestimate what it means to be an intern." I smiled quietly. She added, "Keep it up, I see you." That phrase, "I see you." I'd been missing it my whole life. One day, during lunch on the office terrace, Miranda unexpectedly sat down next to me. The weather was cloudy, as usual in Seattle, but inside me it was clear. "Missing home?" she asked. I took a sip of coffee and calmly said, "Number." She raised her eyebrows. "At all?" I paused. "Don't have a support system. I'm building it myself." Miranda said nothing, just gave a slight nod. That moment was almost invisible from the outside. But inside, something shifted. For the first time, I admitted out loud that I wasn't obligated to miss people just because they were family. That it's okay to miss understanding, a helping hand, a voice of support. But if that's not there, then you have to build it yourself. From notebooks, from charts, from trust earned through hard work. I didn't feel like a hero. Just a person who finally built the first wall around her inner fortress. Who said, "I'm not alone. I'm with myself, and that's enough to keep going." It was Friday. Rain was falling, the office was emptying out, and even the coffee machine sounded like the final credits rolling. I was getting ready to leave. I even had a movie ticket. For the first time in ages, a free evening. And then a message popped up in the chat. Urgent. Spike in false positives for the Atlanta client. Need clean analysis by morning. The lead analyst was out of town. The others were already offline. The whole system was panicking, alerts pouring in like hail. The client was threatening to terminate the contract. The project doomed, the reputation too. I sat there, staring at the screen, and realized, if not me, then who? I opened the logs, built time graphs by hand. Data points, spikes, hypotheses. I found the error in the incoming data labeling scheme. One API was mishandling signals from a certain type of device. The clock showed 2:17 a.m. I wrote down the hypothesis, added examples, screenshots, made a pull request, and left a note on the shared dashboard. Suggested fix, ETA if deployed 6 hours. I fell asleep at the monitor in the meeting room with my notebook as a pillow. In the morning, Miranda was the first to arrive. Holding a cup of coffee, but not with her usual thoughtful face, with a look I had never seen before. A little pride? "Is that you?" she asked. I nodded. "And you handled all that on your own?" "Not again." Miranda sat down beside me and said, "You saved the client." Pause. "Write a report. I want your name at the top." I didn't understand immediately. On top? But there's... You did the work, you deserve the credit. That was my first officially documented case. Not assistant, not team member. My name in the header. My conclusions in the final PDF sent to the client. I didn't jump for joy. I just felt something straighten inside me. Like a backbone of confidence growing anew. That evening, I decided to post about it on LinkedIn. No bragging, just a story. Today, I officially documented an analytical case that saved a contract with a major client. I'm not the lead specialist, I'm an intern. But sometimes, all you need is to be there when it's burning. Being quiet doesn't mean being weak. Sometimes it means being ready. 2 days later, the post had 250,000 views. People wrote from all over the world. One woman from Germany wrote, "I'm an engineer, and I've also been too quiet all my life. Thank you for giving us a voice." I sat at home, wrapped in a blanket, reading the comments and cried. Because for the first time, the voice that had lived inside me all my life was heard. 3 months after that night when I saved the Atlanta project, Miranda called me into the conference room. I thought it would be feedback. Or maybe a new case. I even brought my notebook and pen, as always. But she placed a printed sheet in front of me with the headline, "Offer, full-time position vertical bar data strategist." I didn't read it right away. I just stared at the paper until the letters started to blur. "Look at this," she said. I scanned it. $88,000 a year. Health insurance, tech stipend, PTO, signature, Kayla Reeves, data strategist. I looked up. Miranda smiled a little warmer than usual. "This isn't a kindness, it's a business decision. You proved you don't just cope. You build." I nodded. But inside, everything was shaking, not from fear, from the scale of the moment. This wasn't just a first job. It was a ticket to a new version of myself. I walked outside, the printout in my backpack. Only one thought was playing in my head. They didn't come to my graduation, but I came to my future. The next day, I went to the mall and bought my first suit. Gray, with a slight cool tone. Not girly, not cute. One that says, "I'm someone whose opinion matters." I stepped into a small downtown restaurant, cozy, with dim lighting. The waiter asked, "Are you waiting for someone?" I said, "Yes, myself." I ordered a glass of sparkling wine. And a steak. Because if you're celebrating, it's not with a salad. And I sat there, alone. In silence. No family. No applause. Just me and finally, on my phone, an email with my new signature. Kayla Reeves, data strategist. And inside, silence. Not emptiness, but space. For the first time, there was no pain of loneliness. There was the feeling. I made it. I got out. In early November, they wrote, "First, Mom. Sweetheart, you're probably busy, but your dad and I were thinking. Maybe you'd come for Thanksgiving? There will be turkey pie. Everyone will be there. Even your cousin's wife. She's an IT specialist too." Then my sister, "You're in Seattle now, right? Awesome. Fly over, okay? We'll have hammocks on the porch, blankets, everything cozy. Why sit alone?" I read the messages. Several times. The tones were familiar. Like nothing had happened, like last year was just a forgotten browser tab. I made tea. Saturday by the window. Outside, a light rain was falling, as it almost always does in Seattle. People walked down the streets, wrapped tightly in scarves. And inside me, there was warmth. I wrote back, "Thanks for the invite. I have my own plans here. But I hope you have a good holiday." No anger, no sarcasm. Just grown up. An hour later, a reply came. From my stepdad, "You've changed. You used to be simpler. Now it's like you've spoiled. All those cities, the suits, your loud posts. We're family. But it feels like you forgot where you came from." I read it and felt nothing. No guilt, no pain. Just silence. Before, I would have immediately defended myself. No, I haven't changed. I'm still the same. But that evening, I just put my phone down on the windowsill and watched the rain paint vertical trails on the glass. I didn't cry. I wasn't angry. I simply decided, this is not revenge. This is not pride. This is a choice. My own. To be where I'm not waited for out of politeness, but truly respected. I made myself dinner, sweet potato, a bit of turkey, a glass of cider, put on a playlist of soft jazz, And for the first time in my life, Thanksgiving wasn't a family duty. It was an act of self-care. In March, a flood of notifications hit me. TechCrunch published an article titled, "Quiet Power: How Kayla Reeves Changed Healthcare Analytics." My face was on the front page. My story in quotes. And for the first time, not distorted, not reshaped by someone else's view, but mine. Twitter buzzing with mentions. LinkedIn filled with reposts and congratulations. But the strangest thing started 2 days later. "Mom? I saw the article. So proud of you. Your dad and I are beaming." "Sister." I reposted it. Everyone at work was like, "That's your sister?" And I said, "Yeah, that's Kayla." "Aunt, your grandma would have been so proud." "Really?" Now it's okay. Now that they wrote about me, now that the numbers are impressive, now it's not embarrassing to show off the relative from Seattle. But a year ago? When I was eating steak alone at a restaurant because no one showed up at my graduation? When you said I had changed for the worse? I stared at the screen and felt not anger rising inside me, but exhaustion. I didn't want to argue. Didn't want to burn bridges. Just clarity. You see success now. But you didn't see the journey. You praise me now not for who I am, but for how I look online. And me? I don't need that approval anymore. Still, I read every message. With gratitude, not fake, but genuine. Thank you, at least now. Then my sister wrote, "You absolutely have to come for the barbecue this summer. The whole family will be there, even Corey and Jade. Everyone wants to see you. Bring your suit because Grandma still thinks you're an accountant." I closed the messenger. Walked around the apartment. Looked at my notes board. There was a quote I'd stuck there myself 6 months ago. "When you're only noticed after success, that's not love. It's convenient pride." But I decided I'll go. Not because I owe them anything. Not to prove anything. Not to be a good girl. But because I'm no longer afraid to be myself around them. If they see success in me, fine. But I'm going there not as a granddaughter, daughter, or sister, but as Kayla, the one who survived and built herself from scratch. The day was sunny and warm with a gentle breeze. Perfect for those family barbecues I hadn't had the energy to attend for years. I drove into the neighborhood where I spent my childhood in a rented Tesla Model Y. White, shiny, quiet like a reflection of myself. I stopped by the same house, with its peeling mailbox and the stretched-out flag on the porch. I stepped out in a simple white linen suit, plain leather sandals, and a slim folder under my arm. No showiness. Simply everything was in its place. As I walked toward the backyard, all heads turned at once. "Wow, no way," my cousin breathed out. "You look like you walked right out of an HBO show." My sister couldn't hide her surprise. "Where's your camera? Tell me you're shooting some ad, huh?" Aunt Jenny giggled. I smiled. Softly, confidently. For the first time in many years, I didn't feel the need to justify myself or dumb down. I went to the table and sat between my nephew and uncle, listening to conversations about someone's mortgage rates, some course on successful success, politicians, the weather, the neighbor's new boat. I didn't say, "Well, in Seattle, I didn't brag about projects or drop client names. I just ate my salad and watched. They were the same people, but I was different. At some point, when the heat from the grill began to fade, Uncle Ted, the one who always liked to tease, put his beer down and asked, "Listen, Kayla, you weren't upset back then at that graduation, right?" A pause. Everyone froze. Family eyes flicked from him to me, from me to the ground. Even the dog at Mom's feet seemed to quiet down. I put down my fork, lifted my gaze. Yes, I was upset. But not because you didn't come, because I thought that was normal back then. Normal that my success didn't matter. Normal that a barbecue was more important than my diploma. Normal that if I wasn't loud, I could be ignored. A pause. No one moved. Now I know. My worth doesn't depend on who shows up. It's inside. And you know, it's much quieter there. but much stronger. Someone coughed. Someone stared at their plate. Mom just looked at me, for a long time. And for the first time, she didn't try to argue. And I didn't need an "I'm sorry" or a "we were wrong." It was enough to just be myself here, and not lose myself. I stood up, helped clear the plates, petted the dog who finally thawed. And when I got behind the wheel of the Tesla and drove out of the yard, I saw in the rearview mirror my sister watching me. Watching for a long time, without a smirk, without words. As if for the first time, she saw not quiet, strange Kayla, but a woman who knows her worth. It had been exactly 1 year since I stood in that backyard by the family table, saying words that seemed to change not only me but everyone around me. Today, I was standing on a different stage. This was the University of Arizona campus in Tucson, the place where it all began, where I once dreamed sitting in an old lecture hall. On this stage, a bright spotlight shone. In front of me, hundreds of graduates in caps and gowns, proud and a little nervous. In the audience, parents, friends, professors, honored guests. But not a single familiar face from my past. It didn't matter anymore. I was introduced as a successful entrepreneur and graduate who built a career despite all the quiet voices and disapproving looks. When I stepped up to the microphone, my name shone on the podium's plaque, Kayla Reeves. The applause drowned out my thoughts. And I smiled. At first, I simply spoke about the importance of believing in yourself, even if others see you as too quiet, too weak, too unnoticeable. Then, I said what I had carried in my heart all this time. When your family forgets your day, create a day no one will ever forget. The silence in the hall was deep and respectful. I could feel my words reaching everyone who ever felt unheard, unrecognized. Because strength isn't in shouting. Strength is in resilience. In the confidence to walk your own path, no matter what. When the speech ended, I walked off the stage and across the campus. Without the gown. In my everyday clothes. Calm and confident. With every step, I felt it now I stand where I meant to be. Not for anyone else, but for myself.